Започнем с това как беше така, как изглеждаше света на програмирането и гледна точка на езиците за програмиране през 2020 година, на какви езици се писа най-много, какво се ползва, за какви проекти, под каква форма и така нататък. Много неща искам да ви разкажа, но ще започна с най-нашумелите, най-използваните езици. Те се делят на мейнстрим езици и специализирани езици, като тук не включвам фреймворци и технологии от сорта на React, Angular и така нататък, само езици за програмиране. Значи, което е малко криво, защото езици за програмиране винаги идват с някаква технология, т.е. Java с Spring, примерно, Javascript с Angular и с Node.js, Python с Django, да кажем, или с някакви machine learning toolkitове, TensorFlow и така нататък. Python език.
Говориш на английски.
Трябва да говоря на английски ли?
И тук двама души молят.
Oh, okay, I'll switch in English. Sorry, I didn't know. Okay, so the mainstream languages and frameworks are, I will start with Python. Python is best for data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and formerly for web development. Python is one of the most trending programming languages in the world, which is the first choice for data scientists, for data engineers, data machine learning professionals, also for newbies in programming, and also for scientists. It comes together with many languages and toolkits and frameworks like the data science toolkits, like the Jupyter notebooks together with Anaconda, and libraries like NumPy, TensorFlow for machine learning and deep learning, PyTorch for machine learning, and some web frameworks like Django and Flask. It comes also together with MySQL, Postgres, SQL as a database backend layer, and also with some front-end technologies like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to visualize data, to interact with the user in the web browser, etc. Java is one of the top languages in 2020, which is best for enterprise applications, backend applications, and web apps, enterprise apps, web services, and also for mobile development in the Android world. Java comes together with Spring Framework, with Spring MVC, with Java Enterprise, and all these hundreds of other technologies in this Java EE umbrella, with data mapping and ORM technologies like Hibernate and Spring Data, and with databases like PostgreSQL, MySQL, and many others, and sometimes together with some front-end technologies which are used for the front-end part of the apps like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React. So Python and Java are maybe the most popular and most used technologies in 2020, but it depends on the point of view. Let's see the questions. Okay, I'm talking in English already and everyone is happy, I hope. JavaScript is best for modern front-end apps. It's most popular for front-end apps, and it hardly has an alternative in the web front-end development world. It comes with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and front-end technologies, libraries, and tools like React, like Angular, like Vue.js, like the HTML5 platform and its API. It's used mostly for cross-platform UI and web-based UI, but also it works well at the backend with the Node.js, Express, MongoDB, and others. And it sometimes comes with the language Typescript, which is strongly typed variant of JavaScript, or a kind of modification of JavaScript built for less error-prone code. Next is the C# language, which is general purpose language built for backend mostly, for web apps, for enterprise apps. Also, it works well for desktop apps in Windows environment. And recently, with the Blazor technology, it can replace the JavaScript on the front end with WebAssembly and C#. It comes with a bunch of technologies like .NET Core, ASP.NET MVC for web development, Entity Framework for ORM and data access, SQL Server mostly as a database, and of course front-end technologies which are combined with the backend like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and React. If you see the job ads in the job portals, you will see that most job offerings for C#, for example, come with these descriptions. They, in most cases, require also HTML, SQL, and some JavaScript. That's why JavaScript has a lot of popularity, which I will explain later. And next is C++. It's a kind of specialized language, not general purpose like the others, like Python, Java, JavaScript, and C# are more general purpose languages. But C++ is highly specialized for embedded and IoT development, for graphics and game development, for financial high-performance processing, sometimes for system-level programming, and mostly for highly optimized high-performance backend computing, like gaming, like graphics engines and others. It comes with many libraries and frameworks like STL, Boost, with the CMake and other build system, with the Qt graphic library, with some other libraries like Poco C++ and many others. And it's also in the top 5 of the most wanted, most popular mainstream languages and frameworks. PHP is a kind of going down language, which is best for server-side web apps, dynamic websites, e-commerce projects, and web programming. It is going down because the web is changing, and in the most recent years, the front end becomes mostly JavaScript apps, and the server-side apps, the server-side rendering, where PHP was originally designed for, is going down. It's not popular to have a server-side based web apps. PHP comes with, in most cases, with MySQL database and with popular PHP frameworks like Laravel, Symfony, CodeIgniter, and others. And it, of course, combines the job offerings for PHP, combine also front-end technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, front-end, React. And PHP is very popular in the WordPress ecosystem, because it's the language which drives WordPress, and which means that it drives tens of millions of websites in the world. So most websites in the world are PHP driven and WordPress driven. This is one of the reasons that PHP is still so popular. I will mention a bit some less popular languages and frameworks like Typescript, which is a kind of strongly typed JavaScript, an extension to JavaScript, which introduces type system, strong object-oriented concepts like classes and interfaces, and it is less prone to errors. It's good for big and complex projects which needs better organization and better framework, better structuring. It's used in Angular by default and in Next.js framework for server-side JS apps, also as a main language. Swift is popular in the Apple ecosystem. This is the Apple's variant of Java or C#, if I can say it like this. But Apple, like the other big players, are so big that they invent their own languages. And Swift is their general purpose language, which they use mostly for front end to build mobile apps for iOS, for iPad, for iPhone, and this ecosystem, and also for macOS. If you are a Mac developer and you want to build desktop apps, Swift is your choice. It is alternative of the Objective-C, which is the old-fashioned lower-level language, and Swift is a replacement for Objective-C. Kotlin is a simplified syntax for Java and for Android apps. It's built to simplify Java, because in Java you write too much code to achieve not much functionality. It have a lot of code which is not needed, junk code. So Kotlin improves how you define properties, how you define classes, and you write less code. So it is very nice addition, but it is similar like JavaScript and Typescript target the same languages, but with different syntax. So Java and Kotlin target the same Java ecosystem and Java virtual machine and Java platform, but with different language. It's similar with Scala, but Scala is rich functional programming, and it combines functional programming and object-oriented programming for the Java platform. But Scala is less popular than Kotlin. Kotlin is highly popular in the Java development ecosystem. Ruby is dynamic language built for simplicity and productivity, mostly for web development, for web and backend apps. It was alternative to PHP and Python in their early, maybe 10 years ago. And it was highly trending language, but now it's also going down like PHP, because it's used mostly for server-side web apps, which were replaced with backend services and front-end UI built with modern frameworks like Angular and React. Visual Basic is also on the top with the indexes that I will show you. It's a scripting language used for scripting mostly in Windows environment, and also it was before the C# and .NET framework. It was the Microsoft's main tool for building apps, but it was maybe 15 years ago. It's no longer popular. It's slowly disappearing, like Ruby, like maybe like PHP. It's not sure. Quite sure whether PHP is disappearing, but Ruby and Visual Basic looks like they are going down. And I will show you charts. I will show you rankings and indexes where you can see this. This is repeated, so I don't know why. Specialized languages are built for a certain purpose to overcome some limitations, for example, of C++ or other language. Maybe the most interesting example of specialized language is Go, which is highly efficient, high performance server-side development language built by Google, initially for their Google Maps project, but now used these days used by Uber and many other companies for building highly efficient backend apps. It's alternative to C++. Rust is very interesting language, which is highly trending. It is multi-paradigms backend language designed for performance and mostly for safety. It's safe about errors, about releasing, about memory management and many others, which are the biggest sources of errors in C++. So in Rust, people build financial software, blockchain systems, and many others which need high reliability and safety. C is the language used to write the Linux kernel. So if you are involved in low-level and system programming, C is a language of your choice, preferred language, and it is very old-fashioned. It's old language at very low level, which directly works with the memory, with the microprocessor, with the assembly language close to the operating system, but it's not high popular except for some kind of embedded systems. And R is a highly trending language. If you look at the rankings of the statistics, you'll see R and you ask yourself, what's this? R. This is highly specialized language for statistics and data analytics. It comes from the data science community, from the big data, data analytics. Data engineers use R to deal with large data sets and extract some statistical characteristics of them, and etc. But it's like SQL. It's highly specialized language used together with some other languages or as a piece. It's not a language where you build, for example, web app. It's a highly specialized language for certain tasks. Dart is a front-end language built with the Flutter framework. If you know this Flutter framework, Flutter is a UI framework by Google, alternative to React and Angular, and it's intended to build cross-platform UI, which runs everywhere on every device, and which is modern and looks well everywhere. Perl is old-fashioned but powerful backend language, initially created for data processing, but it's trending down now. So we have very specialized so-called languages, but these are not languages. These are technologies which look like language by syntax, but they are not Turing complete, and I don't consider them a programming languages. They are languages, but not for programming. Like an example is SQL, which is a database query and manipulation language. Why I mentioned these languages? Because I exclude them from the rankings, because in the rankings, we have a lot of such languages like HTML, like XML, like JSON, which are common to all developers. For example, if you write PHP, or if you write Java, or if you write JavaScript or Python, or even if you write Swift, you should know HTML, because you visualize the content in the web environment with HTML and CSS. But HTML and CSS alone are not programming languages. They are not alternative to Java or Python. But C# is alternative to Java or Python, and C++ is also. So that's why I put these languages separately, and I will not include them in the charts, in the rankings, which I will display later. So HTML and CSS, SQL is a language for data query and manipulation, for relational databases like PostgreSQL, like Oracle, like SQL Server and MySQL. And HTML and CSS visualize front-end web content. What you see in the web browser consists of HTML plus CSS. And XML and JSON are data storage and transportations formats. They are formats. They are not like SVG. These are formats to describe certain data in certain syntax, but they are not programming languages. Okay, so I will switch now with the rankings, but first I need to see whether they have questions. I will think, what do you think about the Golang? I already explained that it's a powerful alternative to C++. It is more modern. Some developers say that it's more easy to learn, less prone to errors, less complex, but as powerful as C++, and it is the same class of languages like C++, Go, Rust, Erlang, which are highly specialized for high-performance backend, mostly backend development. Okay, so these are the chats, but I don't see where the people. I have presenters here. I'm trying to learn this platform because I'm first time here. Type a question and we have chat. Where is the chat? Looks like this is broken. Okay, I will now review the most influencing programming language rankings. Rankings are some kind of personal opinions about this is the top language, this is the second, this is the third, and there are a lot of rankings, but there are some highly influential, like rankings which come from GitHub, or rankings which come from, for example, Stack Overflow, and less influential. I will give you several rankings, and you will see where their intersection is. And their intersection are these modern popular languages like Python, JavaScript, Java, C#, and C++, which, by my opinions, are the top 5. But let's see these rankings. LinkedIn Jobs is, oh, I will separate this window. LinkedIn jobs are the LinkedIn/jobs. If you enter LinkedIn, you click jobs. And here you can check by keyword. For example, if you write Java and you write worldwide, these are the open jobs in LinkedIn about Java. It's something like 357,000 currently. And you can compare this with the same thing. I will try like this. Yeah, it works. But I will replace here with C# or with JavaScript, because otherwise I will need escaping. So JavaScript worldwide is 312,000 and Java is 357,000. But if you look inside, we can see that we cannot rely too much on this, because senior Java developer, it's okay, but CTO, it's not sure that it is only Java. It may be DevOps combined with Java, combined with the project management, with other skills. Java in Japanese, okay, looks like Java developer, but mobile developer could mean not only Java. Remote Java, Java architect, okay, staff QA. QA for Java products, this is not a Java job. What I want to tell you is that if you look for Java in LinkedIn worldwide, this number is not quite reliable. It is just a way to check whether Java is more popular than JavaScript, for example, or than Python, but it is not quite reliable because job offers in most cases combine several technologies. For example, let's see, senior Java full stack developer. What they want here is Angular and Spring framework and reactive Pregular. But Angular and React is also related to JavaScript. This means that this job combines Java and JavaScript skills. So how we can account it? It's not quite easy to decide. So, but we should be able to find, if we want to be more correct with our research on the job market and programming languages market, we need to be more confident what is the main technology in these job offers. And also, I'm not sure that LinkedIn is the most influential job portal in the world. I believe so, but in some countries, some job portals are more powerful than LinkedIn. For example, in Bulgaria, Jobs.pt is more popular than LinkedIn Jobs. But it is questionable, discussable area. Okay, you can ask questions here in the chat. I will follow it. So let's continue now. By LinkedIn Jobs, as of December 2020, Java is the #1, and Python is behind it, like job openings, and JavaScript is around this, and these are the top 3. And if you see, these top 3 are quite bigger than the next 3. The next 3 together are like this one, like the third one, something like this. So it looks like that the top, if you want to find a job for yourself, looks like learning Java gives you, maybe combined with JavaScript, which they always come together, less or more, you have the best chance to start the jobs. This is what the statistics worldwide tell. And also, the fourth language looks like it is C++, which I'm not sure whether it's true. It's related mostly to embedded software, this programming for example, for TVs, for embedded devices like routers, like cameras, and many others. But for example, in Bulgaria, definitely C# is most wanted and needed than C++. But this is worldwide. This is what LinkedIn says. And this is maybe the only place where C++ is before C#. But I need to mention that all these things are highly discussable. If you change something very small, you will see totally different results. For example, if you change the country, or if you change the month, for example, not December 2020, but November 2020, you will see very different results. But generally, maybe the top 5 languages are this. And generally, Java is more popular than C#. But whether Java or Python, which is more popular, it depends on the job rankings. This is what I needed to show you about LinkedIn jobs. Let's see the next ranking. But before that, be careful, because open jobs does not mean total number of jobs. What I mean, some jobs are easier to hire people than other jobs. For example, if you want to hire a person who knows HTML and CSS, it's quite easy. So there are not much open positions for HTML website worker. Also, if you want to hire a WordPress site maker, there are not much jobs in LinkedIn. Why? Not because there are not hundreds of thousands of such people, but because there are not much open jobs. Open jobs means what LinkedIn will show you. This means how many developers, additionally to the currently working developers, are needed. And if some technology is hard to find, like C++, you will see more open jobs. If some technology is more easier to find, like WordPress website makers, because you need less skillful people, there may be more employees in the industry, but less open jobs. You should consider this, because different rankings have different mindset behind and different criteria behind. I'll show you the differences. But LinkedIn jobs is my favorite because it tells you, it answers you the question, if I learn Java, what is my chance to find a new job with Java? If I learn C++, is my chance better to find a new job than if I learn PHP? This is what this ranking tells you. What is my chance to find a new job if I'm a good developer and if I learn one of these languages, and the technologies which come together with them, because you never learn only Java, you learn Spring framework, you learn Hibernate, you learn many other things. GitHub is one of the most biggest authorities about programming in the world, and they have the so-called Octoverse report, which tells you many things, but one of them are the programming language popularities over the years. And we can see here that that JavaScript is #1 for the most, I don't know how much years. This means that JavaScript developers use much GitHub. I will discuss this later, but let's see. JavaScript is #1, Python is #2, which is very close to Java. 1 year ago, this is interchanged. Typescript is going up and up, but it is a kind of JavaScript, so I will consider it differently. So the top 4 are these, with C# and the PHP is the next, and C++ in the next. Looks like C++ is going down, looks like TypeScript is going up, and also it looks like that C# is also slightly going up. But this is based only on public open source projects, which are on GitHub, which are not all the projects in the world. For example, if you work for transportation logistics company with Java, your code will never be on the GitHub, because it's a code which is proprietary, and it is it's not in GitHub, and it is out of this ranking. So what this ranking says is that JavaScript is the languages used by most open source projects in the world. So if you are in the open source ecosystem, if you build open source projects, it's most likely that you write in JavaScript. But if you write closed source projects, I'm not sure that this ranking is helpful. But again, maybe the top 5 languages, maybe only C++ is not here because it's replaced by TypeScript. This is very similar like this. Java, Python, C++, C#, PHP, it's nearly the same, and C++ is missing because it has rank 7, and it is replaced by TypeScript, which should be excluded maybe. Okay, Octoverse, maybe I need to show you this. Octoverse. They have a big report which tells you many things, like how many developers are on GitHub, how they are split geographically, where are they located, mostly in North America, Asia, and Europe, what languages they write. But this is also not quite easy to understand what happens when projects have a JavaScript front end combined with C# backend, for example. Is it C# language repo or JavaScript repo? How we deal with combined projects, which are the most projects, to be honest. So interesting reports we can see, but I don't want to talk about this. Let's go the next ranking. The next ranking is called PIPO, Programming Languages by Google Trends. Google Trends is statistics about what people search in Google. In Google Trends, you can compare, I will show you, trends with Google. And if you open this, you can type here Java as a programming language, because Java could be a coffee or could be something else. So you need to compare Java, for example, with JavaScript as a programming language. And also you can C# as programming language, C#. C#, for example, it's hard to find it, but it's possible. So you can see that C++ is less popular than JavaScript, and it is less popular than Java in Google. But what does this mean again? This means that some developers use more oftenly to search in Google than others, which may mean that their language is not quite user-friendly, for example, and they need more oftenly search in Google than other programmers. But this is, again, discussable. So the rankings here in PIPO are like this. The number 1 for December 2020 is Python. It is 30% of the Google searches, which means that people who want to enter the software industry, which are people who search much more than senior developers and more often, are 30%, and they choose Python. So Python looks like the number 1 language for newbies, for people who use Google, who use the programming by Google style. Java developers are the second, and JavaScript are the third. I'm not sure that JavaScript is 4 times less popular than Python. I don't trust this index. I'm not sure. I believe that LinkedIn Jobs is a better criteria, and also GitHub is a better criteria than this. can you imagine that people search Python 3 times or 4 times more often than JavaScript? I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. It's discussable. And also, but the top languages looks like to be Python, Java, JavaScript, and C#. So they explain the popularity index is created by analyzing how foreign language tutorials are searched on Google. So it looks like that Python is more popular than Java. This is Java, this is JavaScript. We need to add Python and check whether this is, Python with TH. Python. Oh, sorry. I don't need to be in a hurry. Again, sorry. Python as a programming language, not just a word. Yes, it's correct. Python is searched more often than Java and than JavaScript. So it could be correct. And the top 6 languages are this: Python, Java, JavaScript, C#, C++, and PHP. And the next index is by Stack Overflow. I think it's quite more reliable because Stack Overflow is highly specialized site. When developers have a problem, they ask in Stack Overflow, and it's very, 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 very popular. So if you search like this, questions tagged Java, you'll see 1.74 million questions with Java, and with JavaScript, we have 2.14 million questions, and with Python, you have 1.6. But this is all the time. This is not the new questions for the last year. This is all the time. So if you ask about C, because C was quite popular in the past, you will see it's not so much. But I mean that this is the total number of questions which, and some of these questions could be asked maybe 10 years ago. So it's a quite not much accurate way to see the popularity of the languages, but what we can see is JavaScript, the first one, Java, second, Python, third, and C#, the next, and PHP is the next, and C++ is twice less popular than PHP, which is, I'm not sure. This could also mean that people who code in PHP are more active in asking questions than people who write in C++, because PHP is a language for beginners, but C++ is language for professionals. It's different by nature. They are different by nature. So all these rankings are questionable. They are discussable because they measure something which is not which language is mostly used in the industry, but they measure which language is mostly discussed in Stack Overflow, which is different thing. It should have a correlation, but it's not, but it's different thing. So Stack Overflow have another ranking, which is almost the same, but Python here is number 2, Java is number 3, and this is the so-called Stack Overflow Developer Survey, which is very popular, and it is a kind of survey created by 65,000 developers. I also took a part to fill the questions when they asked. So they are trying to research the industry, the developers, by a survey, and they answer many questions like where are developers located. For example, looks like that in the United States and Europe, there are a lot of developers also in India and less developers in Central Africa, for example, in Uganda. Also, they give a lot of interesting information that most developers have 5 to 10 years of experience, etc., etc., etc. And the programming languages, most of them have bachelor or master's degree in computer science, but not all of them. And also they have, if I try to find JavaScript, for example, by languages, these are the most popular. JavaScript, then HTML, but this is not a programming language, it's SQL also. So the number 1 is JavaScript, the second is Python, the third is Java, and the fourth is C#. Bash scripting, I don't consider this. This is a scripting for DevOps and system administration automation, but it's not a programming language. So the first is JavaScript, Python, Java, C#. The next is PHP. If we exclude TypeScript because it's a framework, it's a kind of JavaScript. The next is C++. And the others are less popular, like we can see. So these are the results here. And again, we can see that JavaScript, Python, Java, and maybe C# are in the top. Maybe the top 3 are JavaScript, Python, and Java. Maybe this repeats in all the rankings here. JavaScript, Java, Python. Here, Python, Java, JavaScript. And here, JavaScript, Python, Java. And here, Java, Python, JavaScript. So we can be quite sure that all rankings says that the top 3 languages are Java, Python, and JavaScript. That's all. This is what all rankings say, independently one of another. The numbers after top 3 are different, and maybe C# is the next, number 4 in most rankings, but it's not quite absolutely sure. Sometimes C++ goes before, sometimes after that. And maybe the last index that I want to mention is the so-called TIOBE index. TIOBE is based on the popular search engines, but not only Google. They consider only local search engine like Yandex.ru, like the China's search engines and others, and they see that the number 1 is C. That's why I don't think this is reliable, because how many developers do you know that write in C as their primary job? I don't know anyone. I personally know a few thousands of software developers, and I'm not sure that I know at least one of them who writes in C as their primary job, not additional job in the spare time, but only C. Maybe I know one person which does kernel programming, maybe 2 persons, but both of them are mostly DevOps as their primary job and C developers as their secondary. Maybe the word C could mean something else, because if you look in LinkedIn jobs for R, the language R, it will display R and G, research and development jobs. So searching by keyword, it's not searching by programming language. And this makes difficult to create such indexes and rankings. But also we can discuss here that Java is number 2, Python number 3, C++ 4. But where is JavaScript? JavaScript is number 7. I don't think so. This could not be true. So that's I just can reject TIOBE. It's quite different than the others. So if you see here the top 3 in LinkedIn, GitHub, Typo, and Stack Overflow, Java, Python, and JavaScript are the top 3. Why here in TIOBE JavaScript is not in top 6? This sucks. Just sucks. Don't use this. This is my conclusion. So let's discuss why rankings are not reliable. Because the most important reason is that they are based on by keyword search, and they just count how many times people mention Java, for example, how many times people mention JavaScript. But people who mention, for example, in the job offer, in the job portal, people who mention JavaScript, they match also Java and PHP jobs. You can check this. If you write JavaScript in LinkedIn jobs or in JobsBG or in Glassdoor or in other job search portal, writing JavaScript as a keyword search will also display Java and PHP jobs. So based on search engines and on keyword search, this is by definition not reliable. So rankings like this, Stack Overflow, questions by tag, should be more reliable, because if the question is not about JavaScript and it's about DevOps, for example, it will be not tagged in JavaScript. Tagging should be quite correct in Stack Overflow. And also, maybe here in GitHub, because they have a good engine to find what is the primary language for certain repository, I also think that this should be correct. But some other sources, especially these sources based on search engines, I don't think they are quite correct and accurate. I think they are just for orientation. So what people search means what people don't know, not what they use. Because I can use, for example, mathematics, but I don't search it much in Google because I just know it. This doesn't mean that it is popular, but you should expect that there is a correlation. So think, what do you want to measure? This is very important. You want to measure what are companies looking for, or what are people working, which is different, because a lot of people create websites with WordPress, but job openings about WordPress are not so much. But let me check. I could be wrong. But how much WordPress is needed? Open jobs for WordPress, 28,000. And PHP is 39,000. So it looks that PHP is 3 times more popular than WordPress when we measure open jobs. But if we ask the question differently, how many people use WordPress as their primary tool? These are people in the marketing departments, in the design departments, they are not developers. And if you look for WordPress, for example, in Stack Overflow, you will not see much questions. So it is not quite easy to compare some technologies, and it highly depends. Let's see, WordPress, 172,000, but PHP is 1.3 million. Looks like people who use PHP are quite much more than people who use WordPress. But it's not true. It's not true. People who use WordPress in their job are much more than PHP developers. These are these 80 million people who use WordPress in the world. See, WordPress, how many websites? So we have 555 million websites running WordPress. These are the people who use WordPress. And how many PHP developers there are? Maybe 5 million. Can you see the difference? All these people use this as their primary job or as a side jobs, but they're much more. So it's very, 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 very important to think what you want to measure. You want to measure how many people use PHP and Java, and JavaScript and WordPress, or how many people are needed as job openings on the job market with this technology, because WordPress is quite much used and popular, but it's less needed on the job market because it's easy to learn it. So be very careful about these rankings. And also, like any other people with critical thinking, you can just take many rankings and combine them. And if we do this, we'll definitely see that the top 3 languages for 2020 are Java, Python, and JavaScript. Not exactly in this order, but these are the top 3 because LinkedIn Jobs is what it says. GitHub says the same. JavaScript, Python, and Java are the top 3. Typo says the same. And also Stack Overflow, which is very, very reliable for programming, because it's the most popular maybe site for programming, maybe together with GitHub. They say the same. And this also says the same. In Joby says something different. So that's why you should think a bit why. And also you can see that C is not something which is quite popular. C programming. I'm not sure that C can be matched, because do you see one mechanic, one C? This is not a C programmer. So maybe C developer. This is quite adequate. 52,000 looks like C developers, but compared to C++, 106. It's less popular. So you cannot rely much on this. Okay, could you share your vision about the opportunities in the coming year? Yeah, this will be the but I thought I have more time. I didn't know. Okay, but okay, so I'll finish now. I thought I have more time. So what's coming? What's coming? You should learn coding, you should learn algorithmic thinking, and you should learn the fundamentals of software development, like databases, like front-end development, like back-end development, and many other conceptual things, because they are language independent and the language doesn't matter. And you should learn the recent software technologies and frameworks like React, like Spring MVC, like Django, if you want to be a good professional. And what's coming for the next, in Bulgarian, things could be different. You can check yourself. And I believe that the top 5 programming languages for 2021 will be this. And others will be less significant. Python goes up. JavaScript maybe goes up. I'm not sure about Java. I'm not sure about C++, and I also think that Rust, Go, and others are quite important. But let's see the program at Code Monsters Agenda 2020. I thought I was agenda NAKOV. I think I have more 30 minutes, but I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I was not expecting to be stopped. So
You can continue. We have time.
Okay. Sorry, because okay. Okay, thank you. So please ask your questions. The first question from Dimitar Lyotev is, could you share your vision about opportunities in the coming years? In the coming years, I think that AI, machine learning which comes together with Python will continue to grow, because it's not a balloon. It's not it's something real. Python, machine learning, and these technologies will continue to grow. People should talk not only about languages, because languages are tool for building something. Maybe something which you need to consider is AI and all these related technologies, like machine learning, like deep learning, like computer vision, and all this. And the primary language for this is Python. Also, the other trends is that at the front end, I expect JavaScript to dominate. At the back end, I'm not sure. Looks like Java, maybe C#, maybe Go will dominate, but also languages like Rust are growing up. Julia is growing. Julia is a Python alternative. It's very interesting language, maybe simplified Python. And also maybe we should take this and see. Python will be one of the most popular languages. I should take one of the statistics which has the index from the previous year. See what happens. Looks like C is growing. This is TOB. I don't think it's interesting. Also, you can mention this language R, which is highly growing. It changes fastly. But I'm not sure that it will be quite popular because it's popular in certain domain. It's maybe most of you didn't ever program in Python. R tutorial. You can see just a small tutorial to become familiar with this. Okay, I want to start next page. So these are some. So R looks like Python. This is an interactive platform where you write commands and it works as interpreter. So you, for example, say my string equals to hello world, print my string, and it says, and this is something interesting. Looks like C. It's a C style language, like C, C++. They have data structures like vectors, but also matrices, factors, and some other things like data frames, which are not something we can see in the other languages. See what they have: primitive matrix. They have arrays, which is quite interesting. Factors, which is something like this example. Looks like a list, but quite different. And also they have data frames, tabular data objects. This is something like a table. Do you see? Gender, height, weight, age, and they have kind of tables, so they can process tables directly. And you can import table from Excel and do some analytics on it. This is about R. Also, what we don't have any other questions. Okay, let's discuss the other indices. Maybe this one. I think that JavaScript will dominate on the front end because it doesn't have very stable alternative. Maybe Dart will grow. This Dart and Flutter, which is alternative to JavaScript. Python will go up. JavaScript maybe will stay the same or go up. I'm not sure about Java because it's very old-fashioned, let's say, language, not so modern like JavaScript, but it's stable, well established in the enterprise sector. And I'm not sure what will happen. Definitely, PHP will go down. This is my expectation. I'm not sure about C++. I think it will also go down because Go, Rust, Erlang, and others will go up as C++ alternative because C++ is very complex, very hard to write high quality code in. It's hard to learn it. And some languages like Go and Rust could be a better alternative. Ruby will go down. And languages which are only backend web, they will go down because the demand for them is going down. Old-fashioned language like VBA, Visual Basic for Applications, will go down. And some also old-fashioned language like Perl will go down. And maybe some languages like Julia will go up. Maybe we should find a nice ranking where we have this by years and we can see the statistics. Maybe in Google Trends, we can see 2004 up to, so Java is going down. And you can see that Python is going up. Maybe we should take the last 5 years. It's enough. Java, JavaScript, C++, Python. C Sharp. There was a C programming language. C# programming language, yeah, this is the way to type it. So now we can see that over the time, C# is almost the same level. Looks like the trend is to stay stable. What about Python? Looks like Python is slightly growing. What about Java? Looks like that Java is slightly coming down. And what about JavaScript? JavaScript looks like it stays the same, almost the same, slightly going down. What also to include? C#, Java, JavaScript, Python, and C++. We have only 5 positions, sorry. C#, Java, PHP, I didn't put here PHP, but I can remove C++ and put PHP as a programming language to see that it should going down. PHP, the yellow one, it's slightly going down, but it's slightly, not fast. So looks like in the last half year, everything is going down. But you can see January, all the languages become less searched in Google. So why? Because people have good holidays and they don't think about programming. And in February, they have a peak in the end of February. And this repeats all the years. Okay, so let me see if I have more slides. I wanted to show you things like, to repeat that, coding skills, it's about writing code, using arrays, using loops, using programming logic. This is language independent skill. So if you write in Java, you can switch to JavaScript or Python. The programming language is not interesting. If we talk about algorithmic thinking, this is also a language independent skill and highly sustainable. If you learn it 20 years ago, it will still be it will be useful to have a algorithmic or mathematical or thinking or problem-solving skills. This is quite essential for software engineers and for engineers, not only in the software sphere. Okay, and fundamental development concepts. These are concepts which are things like object-oriented programming, the concepts of functional programming, event-driven programming, component-based software engineering, things like development processes, things like concepts of database systems, concepts of operating systems, concepts of networking. All these skills are sustainable over the time and they are language independent. If you are familiar with databases, because you have learned, for example, MySQL 10 years ago, your skills are still nearly valid and recent, and not much has changed. And the only thing changed is the last 25%, nearly 25%, which are language dependent. So the question about the programming language, it's not quite interesting. It's more interesting which technologies, not which languages, will be more needed and popular in the future. Technologies like machine learning, like, for example, computer vision, technologies like, for example, blockchain or fintech, technologies like computer graphics, for example. All these are different spheres of technology development with which you should watch and consider which is the most hot thing. And you need just to follow the trends. Why one of the things I can recommend is the How It Works Tech Radar. This Tech Radar is about, for example, languages and frameworks, and it says the popularity of what happens. For example, adopt, these are newcomers, like the Arrow framework, or these are the maybe, like Redux, for example, like Rust language. And assess is something which is okay. You can rely on it. Or, for example, Blazor. And they have also description. So this is a very, very interesting website. This Tech Radar, it's very, very interesting. For example, platforms. These are the things like AWS or Backspace or Hot, things that means don't use it. DuckDB, for example, is something which is okay. Techniques are things like concepts, diagrams as a code, or data mesh, or so these are things which come in the radar and they go out. So all technologies come, stay for a lot, and go out or grow. Like, for example, Flutter. Flutter is in the start coming here in the adopt. Next, it's coming here. Maybe it stays here for 10 years or 5 years and slightly disappears. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to show you is how the Bulgarian market is different. So I will open a job portal, jobs.bg, which matches the Bulgarian, what's needed in Bulgarian. I will see here, do I have English version? Yes, I have. So keywords, this is, I will write Java in Bulgaria. I have 1049 with Java. Java. Also, I will do the same for JavaScript, but JavaScript could also include some Java positions, but it's 635. 635. Also, I will put Python. 432. Did you see? If you live in Bulgaria, Python is not quite popular. If you live in the United States, it could be different. But in Bulgaria, C# should be quite popular. It's not. C#. Or maybe it is .NET. No, the same thing. Also, C++ in Bulgaria is not much popular. 169 C++. And also PHP, maybe it's interesting. PHP in Bulgaria is 283. So PHP has similar popularity. So this is the ranking for jobs in Bulgaria. I can place it here. Did you see? This is what I needed to tell you. Okay, do you have more questions? Okay, we have a lot of questions. Could you share more details about the 4 main groups of skills in software engineers? Okay, I have this book, C# booksoftuni.org. You can check this link. I'll put it in the chat. And I have explained very, very well here in the preface the 4 skills of software engineers, how to become a software developer. I have video here, and it's about these 4 essential skills. The skills of coding, which form 20% of developer skills. The skills of coding is about writing variables, conditional statements, loop, objects, methods, simple coding. Algorithmic thinking is about building, problem solving. This is done by solving problems. When you solve problems and gain more and more experience in thinking as an algorithmic approach, you get these skills. Also, computer science and software engineering skills are skills like math behind the programming, programming skills, data structures, algorithms like, for example, sorting or hash tables or binary search trees, object-oriented programming, the concepts of functional programming, for example, lambda functions, higher order functions, closures, etc. Data basics, relational, non-relational, object-relational mapping, networking, client server, etc., etc., etc. And only the languages and frameworks are what you see in the jobs. If you open a job, for example, senior PHP developer, you will see a mix of this object-oriented programming. This is from these skills, from these concepts. I'm sorry, I lost myself. From these fundamentals. If you are Java developer and you have object-oriented skills, you can bring them in PHP. PHP frameworks, Laravel, Symfony, Zend, and Apache and Docker, these are here. And also, if you have RESTful APIs, this is here in the technology, in the concepts. GitLab and Git is also here and partially here. So these are the skills. I group the skills in these 4 groups because it's very, very interesting that these groups of skills, the first 3 are slowly changing. They are fundamental, and they are 75% nearly of the skills you have. That's why if you are senior developer, in Java, you could, in short term, become a senior, for example, iOS developer in Swift, or PHP developer in Linux, for example, if you're a C# developer. If you are a developer, you are a developer. Like if you are construction engineer, you are a construction engineer, not depending where you build this technology or other technology. And only the technologies is what you see in the job offers, mostly in the job offers. And people, especially beginners, try to learn technologies and they don't learn the concepts. They try to learn Kafka and MySQL and AWS, but they don't learn practices like test-driven development or unit testing, which is concept. Once you learn unit testing, like I did, for example, 15 years ago, you will know it. It doesn't change a lot. That's what I needed, I wanted to tell you. Okay, the next questions. Maybe you can show the graph worldwide as currently shows only US. I'm not sure, but worldwide is this PHP, and you can say United States, or maybe it's not in LinkedIn. I'm sorry, but things are similar. If you see worldwide and in the US, the proportions are very similar because US is quite big country and it highly influences the entire world. Could you tell, please, if C++ is going down, which language will be appropriate for game coding? I don't think that for game coding, there are only two major languages, C++, which is the main, and C#, which is the secondary. C# together with Unity is for, how to say, games which are not highly, more simple games. And sometimes games are written in JavaScript, browser games, but they are not serious. You cannot create this like Mobile Legends or, for example, Counter-Strike. You cannot write it in JavaScript. It is written in C++. So I'm not sure how to answer. C++, it's not going down. It's kind of split up. C++ was in the past, but now we have C++. It doesn't split, the community split. We have also Rust, we have also Go. And these three languages do similar job, but they are three languages. So the total number of developers grows, but they don't grow as much as if there were only one language. Okay, and also C++ is still strong for embedded development if you write IoT, but for game coding, this is the standard. The problem with C++ is that it is complex. It is complex. It is not for beginners. I never recommend it for the beginners, and it is hard to learn. It is hard to learn, really. Not like Python. In Python, you don't deal with memory management. In JavaScript also, you don't deal with pointers, with many other things. It's just high-level language. In C++, you need to consider all of this. Okay, other questions? I answered this. I answered this. I don't think we have other questions, so maybe I need to finalize. So my expectations for 2021 is to have Python, Java, JavaScript, C# and C++ as the top 5 languages. I think that PHP will continue to go down because the server-side web development goes down, and maybe JavaScript will be growing. Python will be growing because of AI and machine learning. Java will stay nearly the same. JavaScript, it's expected to be the same. I expect C# to grow because it's open source. It's very, very highly competitive to Java. And C++, I don't expect a big change. changes don't happen from yesterday to tomorrow. They change for lots of years. But definitely there is a future for all of these languages, and except C++, these four are a good choice for software developers to start with. If you're an experienced developer, C++ may be your next language. If you're a beginner, I don't recommend C++. Maybe Python or JavaScript is the best start. If you want to find a well-paid job, maybe Java. Java is very, very, very well paid, maybe best paid from all of this. If you want machine learning, Python. If you want front end and UI, your choice is JavaScript. If you want to write with ease and write everything, C# is your choice. C# is, for example, my favorite language. If I don't have a restriction and I can choose myself the language, I always choose C# because I know it very well and it's much more pleasant than JavaScript or Java, for example. But this is personal opinion. Okay, so thank you for all of this. If you have for participation, if you have more questions, please share here on the chat. If you don't have, okay, thank you. Could you share your vision about opportunities in the common? Yes, I already discussed this. I think that this will be the top 5 languages in 2021. And these are the languages that you need to focus if you are mainstream developer. If you are not mainstream developer, maybe Go and Rust will be interesting for you. Maybe Dart will be interesting for you. Maybe I need to here to say mainstream languages, and also to have a here another story for sorry, it's hard to work with PowerPoint. Okay, but I need to draw it separately. Top 5 non-mainstream ones. 2021 should be maybe Rust, Go, on the radar. Maybe, not only. I'm not sure that they should be top. Maybe like this. Okay. You don't have more questions, so I think that we should finish now, and thank you for participation, and goodbye. Bye.